The American Civil War, 1861 to 1865, was a conflict between the Northern States, Union, and the Southern States, Confederacy, over issues like slavery and states' rights. Some of the most famous leaders of the war were Abraham Lincoln, Ulysses S. Grant, Robert E. Lee, Jefferson Davis, and Stonewall Jackson. The war was the deadliest in American history, with an estimated 620,000 soldiers killed and millions more wounded or displaced. It had profound impacts on the nation's history and led to the abolition of slavery with the Union's victory. Some of the major battles and events of the war include: 1. The Battles of Fort Sumter, 1861. The Battle of Fort Sumter marked the start of the American Civil War. It began on April 12, 1861, when Confederate forces, led by General P.G.T. Beauregard, bombarded Union-held Fort Sumter in Charleston Harbor, South Carolina. The fort was occupied by Union Major Robert Anderson and his troops. They held out for 34 hours against the Confederate bombardment but eventually surrendered on April 13, 1861. No lives were lost during the actual fighting, but this event ignited the Civil War. Fort Sumter's fall galvanized both the North and the South, leading to increased military mobilization and a deepening of hostilities. The battle is historically significant as the first military engagement of the Civil War, highlighting the irreconcilable differences between the Northern and Southern states. 2. The Battles of Bull Run, 1861. The Battles of Bull Run, also known as the First and Second Battles of Manassas, were significant engagements during the American Civil War. The first battle took place on July 21, 1861, and the second battle on August 28 to 30, 1862, near Manassas, Virginia. Both battles resulted in Confederate victories, highlighting the complexity and brutality of the war. 3. The Battle of Antietam, 1862. The Battle of Antietam, fought on September 17, 1862, near Sharpsburg, Maryland. Antietam was part of the Maryland Campaign, a series of maneuvers by Confederate General Robert E. Lee's Army of Northern Virginia and Union General George McClellan's Army of the Potomac. The battle's intensity is underscored by key locations like the Bloody Lane and Cornfield, where some of the fiercest fighting occurred. The cornfield changed hands multiple times, and the sunken road, Bloody Lane, became a scene of heavy casualties. Antietam remains the bloodiest single-day battle in American history. Both sides suffered heavy losses, with around 23,000 casualties, including over 3,600 killed. While the battle ended in a tactical draw, it was a strategic victory for the Union. Lee's forces withdrew to Virginia, and the Union claimed it as a victory, providing President Abraham Lincoln with the opportunity to issue the Emancipation Proclamation, changing the war's focus to include the abolition of slavery. 4. Emancipation Proclamation, 1863. The Emancipation Proclamation was issued by President Abraham Lincoln on January 1, 1863, during the American Civil War. The proclamation declared that all slaves in Confederate-held territory were to be forever free. However, it did not immediately free all slaves. It applied specifically to those in states that had seceded from the Union. Lincoln framed the proclamation as a military necessity rather than a moral stance. It aimed to weaken the Confederacy by depriving it of valuable labor and encouraging slaves to escape to Union lines. The Emancipation Proclamation did not apply to slaveholding border states that had remained loyal to the Union. It only addressed the Confederate states in rebellion. While the initial purpose was strategic, the proclamation also had a profound impact on the moral dimension of the war, aligning the Union's cause with the abolition of slavery. The Emancipation Proclamation paved the way for the eventual abolition of slavery with the ratification of the 13th Amendment to the U.S. Constitution in 1865. 5. The Battle of Gettysburgs, 1863. The Battle of Gettysburg, fought from July 1 to 3, 1863, in Gettysburg, Pennsylvania, was a pivotal engagement in the American Civil War. Confederate General Robert E. Lee sought to invade the North but faced Union General George G. Meade. The three-day battle witnessed intense fighting, including notable events like Devil's Den and Pickett's Charge. Despite early Confederate successes, Union forces ultimately prevailed, marking a turning point in the war. The Union victory at Gettysburg halted Lee's invasion and boosted Northern morale. The battle's significance extended beyond military outcomes, influencing diplomatic relations and discouraging foreign support for the Confederacy. Gettysburg remains one of the war's bloodiest and most iconic moments, with approximately 51,000 casualties on both sides. 6. The Siege of Vicksburg, 1863. The Siege of Vicksburg, lasting from May 18 to July 4, 1863, was a pivotal event during the American Civil War. Union forces, commanded by General Ulysses S. Grant, laid siege to the Confederate stronghold of Vicksburg, Mississippi. The city, situated on the Mississippi River, was a crucial transportation hub. The Union Army surrounded Vicksburg, subjecting it to continuous bombardment and cutting off its supply lines. The Confederate forces, led by General John C. Pemberton, endured harsh conditions. After 6 weeks of relentless siege, and with Confederate supplies running out, Vicksburg surrendered to the Union on July 4, 1863. The Union victory at Vicksburg was strategically significant as it gave the North control of the entire Mississippi River. This victory, coupled with the Union triumph at the Battle of Gettysburg on the same day, marked a turning point in the Civil War, boosting Union morale and diminishing Confederate hopes for foreign support. 7. General Sherman's March of the Sea, 1864. General William Tecumseh Sherman's Civil War campaign stands as a testament to innovative military strategy and unconventional warfare. Leading Union forces, Sherman played a pivotal role in the conflict, notably during the Atlanta Campaign and the subsequent March to the Sea in 1864. Having captured Atlanta, Sherman embarked on a daring march, covering nearly 300 miles to reach Savannah. What set Sherman's campaign apart was his implementation of total war tactics. Targeting not only military objectives but also civilian infrastructure, his troops engaged in scorched earth practices, destroying railways, bridges, and seizing or destroying vital supplies. This strategy aimed to cripple the Confederacy's ability and will to fight. The campaign culminated in the capture of Savannah, demonstrating the effectiveness of unconventional warfare in contributing to the Union's ultimate victory in the Civil War. Sherman's methods were controversial but undeniably influential, marking a paradigm shift in military strategy during this pivotal period in American history. 8. The Surrender of Appomattox, 1865. On April 9, 1865, the surrender at Appomattox Courthouse marked a poignant moment in American history, signaling the conclusion of the devastating Civil War. Union General Ulysses S. Grant and Confederate General Robert E. Lee convened in the modest home of Wilmer McLean to negotiate the terms of surrender. Recognizing the futility of further bloodshed, Grant offered remarkably generous terms to the Confederate forces. Confederate soldiers were permitted to retain their horses, and officers were allowed to keep their sidearms and personal property. This symbolic gesture aimed at fostering national reconciliation rather than perpetuating bitterness. The surrender at Appomattox not only brought an end to the military resistance of Lee's Army of Northern Virginia, but also set a tone for the nation's healing process. Grant's magnanimous approach played an essential role in smoothing the transition from war to peace, emphasizing unity and paving the way for the arduous task of rebuilding a fractured nation. 9. Assassination of Abraham Lincoln, 1865. The assassination of President Abraham Lincoln unfolded on the night of April 14, 1865, in Ford's Theater, Washington, D.C. John Wilkes Booth, a Confederate sympathizer and actor, carried out the assassination. While attending a play, Our American Cousin, Lincoln was shot in the back of the head by Booth. The president was in a private theater box with his wife, Mary Todd Lincoln. Following the shooting, Booth jumped from the box to the stage, breaking his leg in the process, and managed to escape from the theater. Lincoln was taken to a nearby house where he died the next day, on April 15, making him the first U.S. president to be assassinated. Booth's motivation was rooted in his support for the Confederacy and his desire to revive the Southern cause even after the Civil War's end. The assassination was part of a larger conspiracy involving Booth and several accomplices who had planned to simultaneously assassinate other key figures in the Union government. However, the assassination of Lincoln was the only successful act in the conspiracy. The impact of Lincoln's assassination was profound, influencing the course of Reconstruction. Vice President Andrew Johnson assumed the presidency, and the nation mourned the loss of the leader who had guided the country through the Civil War. The events surrounding Lincoln's assassination are crucial aspects of American history, shaping the post-war era and leaving a lasting imprint on the collective memory of the nation. If you're enjoying the content, don't forget to hit that subscribe button below.